better? I think I was doing some tests earlier. Test. Is that better? I had it turned off. You guys hear me okay? I just turned the audio back on. Hopefully that works. Okay. Okay. Your keyboard's having a conniption fit. Alright, let's get rid of this loading screen here, waiting screen. I hope you guys all had an awesome new year. Everybody's rested, 10 pounds heavier, full of candy and cookies and all kinds of things. I don't know. My daughter decided to bake a little bit more than normal, so we're full of food. Gonna have to start running again. Hey Eric, Casper, looking closer. I actually don't remember everybody's name. Everybody's handles is always different. Turn this iPad down. Otherwise I'll hear myself. Alright. So I'm going to do a free sketch today. Kind of like when I just draw a bunch of stuff to kind of warm up to these again. Next week I think we'll do some rendering on a character like we've done in some of the other pieces. So that'll give you guys a little time. If there's something specific tonight that you think of, that you... whether it's like a rendering technique, a specific kind of material that you guys like to use, something that I've done in the past that you just want to see me doing more of. As far as like the rendering stuff goes, that get into some of that. But tonight I'm just gonna go back to kind of like using like one family of an idea and using like very disparate things to kind of come up with ideas. And again, this isn't necessarily the way I straight up work all the time, but I do kind of like think along these lines. So I hope that is good for everybody. Hey Ghazi, welcome, and thanks for all the support on the mechs. Yeah, I appreciate everybody digging on those. I've been using the time-lapse stuff on the iPad. I'm not sure how much drawing I did actually on my PC setup over break. I did a lot of drawing on the couch, which I really like. Now I really spent some time kind of like getting my setup the way I like. So that was a lot of fun. But this pen, yeah, Apple, if you're listening, which you probably are in some capacity, this pen still beats Apple's pencil tenfold. All right, let's get into getting some rough drawings down while we yap. Alright, so what I picked out tonight was this kind of like, oh my god, this little squirrel standing up on its hind legs is like the cutest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And I've seen a lot of research and done a lot of looking around for cute things, and I don't know. Holy crow, look at that cute little guy. That's awesome. This guy's pretty cute too. This guy just is floof. But this guy, I don't know, something about his legs just does everything for me. I love him. And then there's this hare with like these desert hares that have these giant ears so that they can hear all the things trying to eat them like from a million miles away. Pretty great. So I thought we'd do kind of like this like foresty cute thing. Like not everything is going to be cute. In fact, that's some of like what I want to get into. But this is kind of like the family of things that I'm starting with. So you can imagine this is sort of like the art direction. And then the things that I want to mash it against are some different things that have nothing to do with that world, which are I may come up with other things once the ball gets rolling. But like these mushrooms are pretty amazing. Like, I don't know. I'm glad they're not edible, but at the same time, they always look like food. They look like cakes. And then there's this really cool seahorse with like this like segmentation. Almost looks like low poly modeling on the body, which I think is absolutely beautiful. I did see one that was like translucent, but I'm not gonna do any translucent because I'm just gonna be working in black and white, and I'm not sure that's what I want to get into tonight. And a really cool old Vespa and like a bulldozer. Doesn't have like the front scoop or anything on it yet, but like I love these tank treads. I love the proportions of these things. Like if I could drive one of these things to work every day, I would. So that's the ref that I pulled. Like I said, we might go in some different directions, but that was where I kind of started. Eric, this is Wacom's pen, but this is what's called their classic pen. So this is so when you buy a Cintiq or a tablet, an Intuos tablet or something, you get the kind of like big, kind of round pen. Kind of reminds me of like the jelly pens from when I was a kid. Like they're just really big, and then they make this thing called a classic pen, which is much more narrow. So the diameter of the overall pencil is much narrower, and then it swells just like the other one does, but just enough where it catches your finger. But for me, the reason I really like this is it's light. I really think it's nice that way, and I also like that. I'll give you my personal preference as to why I like it better than the Apple Pencil. It's light, very, very light comparatively. It does have the eraser, and it has 2 mappable buttons that actually, I know that Apple has the one button, which is nice. But it's like a tap and hope that you got it kind of vibe, where when you hit it with your finger, there's no actual response. So you don't actually know. You kind of have to also look at your screen, which is never a good thing, to make sure that you actually swapped. But this has 2 buttons, and I actually do use both quite a bit. The nibs are replaceable, which I know the Apple ones are as well, but this one feels more like a pencil lead. And what else do I like about it? Oh, and the thickness. The thickness is important to me, and a lot of people don't care about that. Like they like the pen that comes with it, and this is like $100, which is stupid, but it's nice because I think I grew up drawing with like regular pencils, like school pencils, number 2 pencils, and so my hand actually wants to go to that size. It's the closest there is to that. I think the Apple Pencil is pretty close as well, but it's heavy. It just leans back after a little while. It sounds like really like a dumb thing to complain about, but I'm going to complain about it anyway. All right. Get my nib rotated. So let's draw something. Out here real quick. So I'm not using any brushes that aren't in that pack still that I have up on Gumroad. So if you guys are looking to use these pencils in Clip, they're the ones that are free to download on Clip. I mean on Gumroad for Clip. So I'm going to start with this newsprint number 2, which is. It's not really that much different than the newsprint dark. Just so you guys know what I'm doing a little bit. I know we've had a few weeks off. That's what I always do, like my red lines in. They're a little broader strokes. The pencil is a little bit more transparent than the other pencil. And then when I go to ink, I switch to the newsprint 3 dark. And the numbers don't really mean anything. It's just like the version that I'm at. I'm sure there'll be a newsprint 28 at some point. But this one just has a little bit more density, and it just by default comes up a slightly smaller brush, where it's supposed to. Okay. So, and you're going to see me bouncing around a little bit. I just yesterday updated Clip to the newest version, which doesn't really have all that many changes, but it messed my workspace up a little bit, so I have to go through and make sure everything's where I like it. But that's okay. All right, let's get back to work. Pro Slim Pen. Oh, okay. It's not called the Classic anymore. They change the names all the time. Thanks, Casper. Yeah, and I've had both Apple Pencils. I've had the one where like you have to plug it in at the end and risk like breaking the charging support off, which was absolutely ridiculous, and the new one is much better, but it's still heavy. It's still back heavy. If you're on a table and you're drawing down, then all the weight kind of like gravity kind of helps you out. But if you're like sitting like I do, like with it in your lap and this thing's weighing back, it causes some problems for me. All right, let's see. Okay. What am I going to do? I think we're going to start. Kind of still in the mood to do mechs. So I think we'll start with a little bit of a mech tonight, and then we'll do a creature in a little bit. So one of the things I'm starting to look at as I'm looking at these characters is like the kind of like key proportions, but I think I want to play up some of these like ear shapes. I love that. Give yourself some more room. So I'm just giving myself some quick perspective. No idea if this is correct, but it doesn't matter. Okay. Do you have any tricks for things you do when you start that gets you or your hand warmed up? Sorry if it was asked earlier. No one's asked that one. I'm supposed to do a lot more warming up than I do. I've been drawing all day, so I'm a little bit warmed up already. The part of the reason that like a lot of my posts have shifted towards just like warm-up drawings in the morning is I don't know how many of you guys are actually are drawing every day for work or for whatever, but I've found that like I really need to draw something that I want to draw and something that I think I can accomplish. Like I still want like there to be a bit of a challenge in there. Like I don't want to just draw like the same old thing. That's just not my thing. Some people are excited to be doing that. You know, they're just if they're really good at drawing like girl heads or something like that, like that's like the thing that they go to. But just drawing something that makes you comfortable, something that like kind of like relaxes you, that works for me. I know a lot of people do like hand exercises where they'll do this type of thing over and over. I definitely, I hit these hard squiggles a lot, and that's not for anything other than for me to kind of like mentally remember where the thick to thin is, where the pressure is. It's not really a warm-up exercise. It is me kind of like refamiliarizing myself with what the pen's about to do. Because if I just like start drawing, I just don't remember like exactly what the pen marks are gonna do. So that's part of that. I'll do this like chicken walker, but cute. Not chicken walker. What am I talking about? Like a squirrely thing. Let's bring that out. But yeah, the warm-ups for me is like I really think you have to get like happy drawing, if that makes any sense. Like you have to like want to be drawing again. So to draw something that you like to draw. So I don't know if you guys have seen like what I've been doing on Instagram, but like that's just stuff that I want to be drawing that day. Not for any other reason other than like that's, if someone like said like just draw whatever you want, that's what I would do. And that's helping a lot. That helps me a lot. That's my kind of like warm up. But I feel like to get comfortable, there's one thing about like loosening up. There's another thing about like just feeling confident, and sometimes just having a drawing done that's kind of like a win. Like you actually like accomplished it, is kind of like is like a good motivator for the day to like go in and feel like you can hit a lot of things that are usually like kind of a struggle. because I don't know if you guys know this, drawing is stupid hard. But yeah, so the warm-up process for me is probably not like what everybody does, but I really just need to be kind of like in a good mental space, and there's another part of it, which is like the way I like to think about things is like, as long as I've accomplished something for myself, then all of a sudden I'm much more willing to give a lot more effort to my clients and to the other projects that I'm working on, because I felt like I came first, and that's a healthy place to be as an artist, who sometimes you don't feel like you're actually ever getting the time to work on your own stuff, which you don't. But you could trick yourself. It's too far over, isn't it? Alright, so let me see if I can catch up a little. So Magdalena, you're saying I tried the Wacom and Unova. The pen is nicer from Wacom, to be honest. I don't know the pen from Unova, but yeah, I mean, Wacom's is just nice. They have this proprietary pen technology that otherwise everybody would be doing it, but because they patented it, nobody else can do it. But smart on them for doing that. So then Ghazi's saying, gotcha, maybe I just have a harder time to get started. Yeah, everybody's going to be a little bit different getting started, but I think also sometimes I'll do studies, which, like, that's not the type of stuff that you'd ever post. But I'll do studies where I like look at like a face and just like try and draw parts of it, or the whole face, or something like that. Or if I see like a gesture, if I see a gesture of a human, and they have this nice turn to the hips or something like that I want to like figure out. Like, I'll just practice until I'm happy with like how that human is put together, and that way like I'm just like building like these little confidences. For me, that's the biggest thing with drawing, is just the fact that like you have to remember to try and teach yourself confidence, and those little moments of like warming up can be those moments where you spend some time on yourself. I had a project earlier that I was working on where I forgot to zoom out, and I worked on a whole bunch of it, and then zoomed out and realized just how much I had gotten wrong. I had to basically start over. That was nice. So don't forget to zoom out. Always zoom back out. Yeah, I think you have to be you have to be in a good mental space to do your best concepts. You have to want to be able to do those concepts. Alright, I'm still not 100% sure what I'm going to do for these. Let's see, maybe it's make it look like these things pop up. Kind of cool. Yeah, I think they kind of like retract over this thing, so we can do like a little bit of like fake technology in here. That'll be cool. And there's going to be like an antenna tail, of course, because, you know, antenna tails. Just trying to figure out what I want to do with the face. Like, I don't know if I'm going to go monocular with it, or I think we will go binocular with it, but I think I'm going to use my, make it look like camera lenses kind of thing. They still seem like really big. Yeah, that's kind of cute, right? I did a digital screen last time. We free drew, so I'm trying to do something a little different this time. But yeah, I think I did like Space Invaders on the screen or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but it was pretty fun. Okay, that's probably enough that I can get started inking. One thing I've really liked about the iPad is rotating it like I used to do with my pad of paper when I was a kid. And I really enjoy that. They have a touchscreen version of the Cintiq, and I just like was not willing to get it because I just didn't know how capable the tech was of doing the palm recognition so that it would recognize that you were pen or wanted to pinch zoom or something like that. And I think I'm pretty glad that I didn't get it. I don't regret it at all. But it is on an iPad, it's just such a nice moment. Able to rotate it that way, or you just literally rotate the whole thing. It's awesome. put wiring and so that's sort of like a practice makes perfect kind of thing. So if you guys are trying to figure out like where to put wires, I really do think about anatomy a lot when I do it, like flow of anatomy. I think you're always trying to like emulate the flow of something. Like I think that's why, like if you look at like say C-3PO, and he had like the pistons on his elbows, they kind of like mimicked like the muscle that kind of like pulls it up, where the wires in his guts like mimicked like guts. So there's this kind of like play of like putting technology, this is just one way of thinking about it, but like having technology look a little bit like an anatomical feature that sort of breathes life into things, because people can relate to that. That's really what you're trying to do, is get people to relate to things. Another thing is I'm a big tech nerd. Like as far as like I like cars and motorcycles and just engineering stuff in general, and so I pay a lot of attention to that stuff, and like just the rhythms of it. I like things that look like they were built by people, functional. One thing that I get asked to do a lot in my freelance is I grew up in the 80s. I'm going to tell everybody on myself. Where technology was very functional looking, but our sci-fi movies at the time, like it was almost comical at this point. Like nothing was sleek. Everything looked like it had tons of wires plugged into it, and hinges and knobs, and just felt like, even though it was like the future, like it was like also like already like outdated and cumbersome. You think about Star Wars and the Alien movies, like that's what the future looked like to us. It wasn't iPhones and iPods and earpods and things like that. Like nobody would have designed that. That would be so boring. So when people, try and describe like what they want, nobody's looking for like slick designed technology. They want it to look like it moves, like it's a big, heavy. Not nobody. The people that tend to call me, they want their stuff to look functional. I really like construction equipment. If you look at if you do a Google search on like backhoes, and you get some close-up photos of like some of the arms, like the diggers and things like that. Not only do they look like arms, but they have all these hydraulic tubes there, and valves and release valves, and even like some electrical stuff that moves down them, and the way that those kind of like traipse down the arms to hit the hydraulics and to move down to go to the secondary hydraulics is really beautiful. So looking. Mousers. I remember the Mousers. Yeah, I can't remember. I think they just had. Like a little antenna back here, and then they had like the little legs that. Those are awesome. They have the same tail I'm going to draw tonight. Sorry, I think you guys experienced this last time, but I do go a little bit quiet when I'm drawing tech because I'm concentrating on some of the big arcs. I can talk a little bit more easily when I'm working on the small bits, but once I'm like trying to hit an arc and some of these like car body shapes, I hold my breath and it's kind of like shooting a basketball. Sid Mead visuals, those are the best. He's awesome. Sorry to see that he passed, but his work is going to probably influence other artists for millennia. listen to any of you guys' questions. I mean, if I'm going quiet, don't feel like you can't say anything or ask any questions or anything like that. I'm just stopping periodically to look up a little bit right now. It's funny doing the second piece of technology. After you design it, you have to redraw it at a different angle. It's the challenge. Alright, take care. You talk about how you use the transparency in your stroke. I tried your brushes and had a hard time because I'm used to ink. Yeah, you have to really bear into it, Casper. I do sometimes. The reason I like it, and I'm not sure it's just because I've gotten used to it, but you know, like I'm hitting the transparency button. The button is being activated to swap from this foreground black to the transparency. So if I hit a mark and then I want to erase back out, I'm just hitting the button and it's switching between those two. And you can see it doesn't pick up the ink all the way, or pencil, or whatever you want to say. And that's become kind of like a feature for me. As I'm working, sometimes I just want something lightened rather than completely gone. And that is that is more the way I actually draw in real life, like on paper. I tend to lay something in and then I'll just either build it up or I just will try something out until something works, and then I just kind of like lay in heavier on it. So yeah, I do tend to not want it to erase completely, and that's easy enough to do. You just switch to the eraser, and the nice thing about the Wacom is like the eraser is still on the other side, so if you want to switch the pen over and get that fully obliterated, you can do that. But if you're using like a flat brush, it's going to pull it out completely because it's really just using the same exact intensity regardless of you know, it's just because you're using that newsprint pencil that doesn't have the like it's not fully opaque to begin with, so when you erase it, it's only going to erase out partially, and you really have to kind of do it twice. And so like I've kind of gotten used to, if I want to erase something, or I hit it almost twice in the same motion. It can be frustrating. A lot of the little things that I do are frustrating, even to me sometimes, but I do like that specifically. Yeah, thanks, Lena. I appreciate that. That's really nice of you to say. Ooh, I'm having a hard time following my arcs tonight. That's why Casper was able to pick up on the fact that I'm doing a lot of erasing tonight. Either I'm tired or I just haven't been on this machine all that much lately. I don't know. We'll muscle through it. And once we get to an organic character, it won't matter where my line goes. There's no specificity. It's just why it's fun to do creatures. Alright. At least we're getting into smaller details that aren't quite as insane. Alright, so I'm going to use the I'm going to make sure these eyes are nice and true. So I am going to lay it out a little bit with the tools. That'll just look better. And then actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them on a different layer. That way I can duplicate them more easily. And you can copy these rulers between layers. I just accidentally dropped my selection, that's why. But so if you have a ruler set up in Clip and you want it on another layer, you can, as long as you control click it so that these handles are available, and you hit Control C while it's still like that, and then move to a new layer, you'll see that the tool is gone, but if I hit paste, it'll actually paste that in. So that's pretty cool. Do you draw your lines twice to build them up? Yeah, a lot of times. And sometimes I just like lay into it with everything I got. Casper, just to be really specific though, like, and I think I talked about this when I first told everybody about the brushes, is the brushes are tuned, the curves in the actual brush properties themselves. When you get into the not brush size, is the brush size? Yeah, when you go into the brush size, you're gonna see this curve over here, and so it's based on the pen pressure sensitivity, and you can adjust this curve, and I'm not gonna adjust mine, but you adjust this as well as your Cintiq pressure sensitivity to exactly what you like. And so everybody's hand weights into their lines at a different way, and so you have to kind of, even though you're using my brushes that I created, you have to go back and tune it to your actually, like, how hard you like to press to get things, because if you don't, you're gonna just be fighting it the whole time. I can see even like right now, like I'm not laying in as heavy as I normally do, and a lot of that is because I was on the iPad for so much time lately that, like, whatever the pressure sensitivity of the iPad is something I've gotten used to, so that my muscle memory is a little bit off right now. Probably for the better. Oh, before I do all that, let me copy it. with that. There's this funny thing. I don't know if any of you guys are 3D artists, or if you're just into perspective or anything like that. You know, you use these ellipse tools and they're not accurate. That's not a thing. Like an ellipse, yeah, I don't know if you guys want me to like go on a tangent and talk about like how ellipses go into space and how, just real quick, like if you, how do I describe this? Okay, so if you have the top of a cube going back into perspective, right? And you draw a perfect ellipse, and that means the center is straight through it. Well, what happens actually on the top of something that's actually going back in space is the center isn't in half on the two-dimensional plane, it's in half, it's back here. So you can see the distance here is different than here. So when you put an ellipse there, the distance from here to here and here to here needs to actually be different. So the ellipse is actually really strangely shaped, but it looks right to us. So it's also getting smaller and converging as it moves back. So when you do these perfect ellipses like I'm doing for these eyes, it's close as you're going to get using these ellipse tools, but it's not accurate. Which, if you're ever trying to do something in perfect perspective using the ellipse tools, you're going to go absolutely batty. Unless you're like me and you just don't care. Reinforce that kind of like camera lens look. I'll get a little bit of a lens in there. It's kind of cute. Like cute. Yeah, I'm all about tangents. I'm sorry. The proverbial flexible hose. Can't do a concept without a flexible hose. Look at that. I did the exact opposite of what the other hose is doing. I always do that. Okay. Well, it was fun to draw anyway. Goodbye. I was drawing it. I was like, mentally, something was off. But I committed. That's better. Oh God, I can't believe I just did that. It's been that day. Just a nice gentle reminder that I haven't saved since we started. So do that. The nice thing when you're doing tech, I'll do it up here as well, like it, when you want to get tech down fast, sometimes it's easier to drop in a shadow mass. And you can do this in your rough drawing just to kind of establish things. Sometimes it goes a lot faster. And then start erasing out things like wires way easier. So use your solid brush and just, like, let's say we want like a wire coming in from onto his eye here, or her eye. Another wire coming in from behind and going to the side. And then I just go back and ink that. Once you get the light logic on it, that's just so much easier. So like up here, like, you know, like maybe there's a block of technology in here. I mean, just kind of working, almost like reverse silhouetting. And you can do this like multiple times, like you don't have to do it all in one shot. Like we just know that we want like some cool negative shapes. And then I'll draw a little bit into that. And I haven't cast any shadows yet, but now I can just kind of go back and say like, all right, well, maybe like a wire comes out of that. And this port has another wire that flows out of it. A little bit of work on top of that. Well, actually, so you can, just because we're doing it, we can cast a shadow on that thing. So we know that the ear is casting some shadow down on it. We know that the side of this is casting a shadow onto it. Now we can just add more tech. So maybe there's some little things sticking up on the side, on the top here. tech is really a building process. So to just build it, physically build it, is kind of fun. And establish that shadow. And the negative shapes back here is just kind of like these nice little abstracts of other tech and shadow shapes. And doesn't always have to make sense. It just has to start off with like a good base, and then we can say like, okay, maybe in here, this area right here, like we'll do like a latch piston that kind of like holds up this. But we've got all that technology underneath already established, so it's already got like a nice base that we can build off of. No, I'm on the wrong layer, or I'm not on the wrong layer, but I'm on a layer. Hold on a second here. Okay, one more. All right, we're all combined together, getting together. So now, like I said, it has a little latch pin, like on a car. Put one on this side. Yeah, surfacing robots is like, it just like requires like, like unfortunately like staring at like fighter jets and 747s a lot, and looking at like NASA equipment and just seeing like what the surfaces are. One thing to remember with surfacing is like, if you're trying to establish that kind of vibe where it looks like it was actually built, well then you have to have access panels, and you're setting the scale with the technology. And that kind of like helps you establish like what those panels are supposed to be doing, like how thick the gaps are, how big the screws are. It really helps set the scale. And then repetition, finding ways to like add secondary scribes to things. Scribes are like like these little lines, just like going cross contour with them. You don't want to put them everywhere because then it just the rhythm gets all messed up. But like I can really reinforce how arced I imagine that this body panel is by just continually. See, that doesn't work. It goes against the grain. But if I go the other way, all of a sudden it feels like it flows the right direction. I really don't like that one, but that's kind of the idea, is like you reinforce those. And it gives the illusion of complexity, but really all you're doing is just kind of like building it up slowly. And it's kind of why technology stuff just takes longer. It's like you're just putting a lot more details in, but it's not more difficult. You're just spending more time putting more things in. Put a little bit more goings on in here. These are all in shadow, so I don't really have to do anything more than just like create like nice negative shapes and little spaghettis, and just kind of give it depth. So now it looks all busy in there, like how the things are, full of jumper cables or whatever. Alright, we'll get the legs on this thing. So I want to have a little bit of like a naturalistic twist in this ankle down here. So normally like this plane of this rotation would travel back and it would probably hit more like here, but I want it to look like there's like weight on it, so I've tilted it over in the rough. So you can see how different the angle is than the thigh. So I want to build in more of like a ball socket. So you can imagine like it's got this sphere in there rather than like a straight up kneecap, which would be like more of a cylinder. That would be like a typical joint. And we can echo that angle by putting a cross contour on it, just to kind of reinforce the idea that the thing's taking a hard angle. And we're going to straighten back out the foot as it hits the ground. It just kind of, I think that stuff kind of creates like this nice natural quality. So it's just, it's like, like when you push your ankles out. And I have the luxury of only having to draw one of these legs, so I can kind of go, just be really ambitious, whatever. You can do whatever you want with this leg because you're only drawing one. So, until the person you're working for says we love it, can you get turns of that, and then you gotta draw it from all these different angles. It's always that moment. You're like, kick yourself for drawing something. Alright, so let's see, I'm not gonna finish the foot. Yeah, I'll finish the foot and then I'll go back to the hip joint. It's just adding those like little fenders in on the toes, just to kind of like reinforce like this hip flare. So it's like whoever constructed this, they kept going. You know, they had this like design motif in mind. You guys have any questions? Am I completely ignoring everybody? Anybody get to do or see anything over break that was life-changing? I don't even know if everybody was on break. I took a break. You can see a lot of what I'm doing is just adding contours, cross contours to things to kind of make them feel busier, but it's really, that's all I'm doing is just basically drawing the same thing over and over again. again, one of those areas where, because I don't have to draw the second one, I can just kind of pretend like whatever I'm drawing works, and I don't have to worry about. I can be more inventive with the joint because I don't have to draw it twice in some crazy perspective, which can be damning. A like a lower insertion point down here. This is where, like, looking at like Indy cars and things like that, like, really doesn't really matter if you're into racing or not. Just like the suspension on cars is really fascinating. Landing gear on 747s and things like that really help come up with cool ideas for the way, like, different insertion joints can work. Alright, let's see if I can catch up here. Question. Let's say that during the break you did not take a break because you were still drawing. How long was the longest break without drawing have you ever had? Asking guys in the chat too, just curious. I had like 4-year span. 4 years, I haven't done that before. That was in university. I used to doodle. My teachers realized I was good because I passed my notes. That's awesome. Longest I've ever gone without drawing. Maybe like a week or something. I don't know. It's a big part of everything I do. I don't not draw. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think it's ever been longer than a week. I've been drawing since I was a little kid. I'm glad they saw your potential, though. It's pretty heartwarming. I don't always draw. I certainly don't always draw for other people, or sometimes. What I mean by that is, like, I don't always draw stuff that is showable. Sometimes, like when I'm doing like thumbnails or designs or something like that, like, especially for my own projects, I don't care what they look like. They're absolutely horrendous looking a lot of times. So it's not like I'm always trying to draw like perfect perspective or great anatomy or anything like that. I want to do this front leg before I do the tail. Oh, and I guess I should probably start saying this like every single time. If you guys are just coming out for the first time and you guys have Instagrams or anything that you want to share, or if you guys have been working on something and you've already shared once but you just want to, I don't know, whatever, just feel free to use the chat to put in your handles for Instagram and I don't know if you're on TikTok or whatever the heck you're on, but like whatever you're on to sharing your work, what your art station accounts, whatever, so that while I'm sitting here drawing, you guys can all check out other people's stuff. And like I said, when I post these things afterwards, it posts with the chat, so even people coming by afterwards are still going to be able to check out what's going on with you guys. So don't feel like you can't do that, because like I said, I'm holding my breath over here just trying to draw these straight lines. You guys can do your networking thing. Nice. Gotta go check some of this stuff out. so now that back foot's not working. I'm gonna get the tail, and I'm gonna do the eyes, and then I'll figure out where that actual back foot goes because I got it in the wrong place. Cool. That's gonna be fun to check out. Not gonna put eyelashes on. Nice try. I'm gonna cheat on the antenna ball though, using Ellipse Tool. Because I don't care. Alright, now we can figure out where that other leg goes, because I don't think I have it in the right spot. Still gonna draw it on a separate layer just because I want to make sure. What did I just hit? The iPad has the layer creation buttons and things like that in a slightly different spot, so I've also kind of had of sorts with that a little bit. See, I think that's where it goes, but it's so confusing looking, so I'm going to change it. Glad I kept that on a separate layer. what else we got to just do the eyes? So let's turn off the rough. And then I'm skipping the eyelashes. When you do these personal robots, when do you cook up the story of their function? Probably right after I'm done with the rough. If it's a silhouette study, like if it's like just like, oh, I'm just gonna play with this thing, then I think I'm getting the rough down, and all of a sudden it starts to be a type of character. And then as I'm working out the details, I start thinking about, you know, where the character lives, and, you know, like whether it's had a hard life or if it's a battle drop, whatever it is. There's always like this moment where I'm designing the character initially, and I think I just want to draw like a heroic robot, you know, or something like that. Like I'm just feeling that right now, but I don't necessarily have like a story in mind. And then I get the rough down, and maybe I, you know, tried out a gesture or something like that that is interesting. All of a sudden it starts to talk to me a little bit, and that's when I start developing the story. And that does happen in production environment as well. Like, you know, like when you're doing previs on things, sometimes you have these moments where all of a sudden the idea starts to really solidify and make sense, you know, like it's not all the time when you're working on characters is it predetermined and all you're doing is filling in the blanks. Sometimes they just say they need a certain type of character, and then as you're developing it, you start to come up with all its quirks and its eccentricities and things, which can be really fun. I would say it is the most fun. There was a character designed for the Ratchet and Clank series a long time ago called the Kerchew, and all they had to do is like roll up in a ball and attack you, and that was like the only thing that they had to do. And I ended up with like these furry characters that are kind of reminiscent of this little guy in the bottom right, and they rolled into these armored balls. And there was always like, at that point we were really wondering, like, if you make something cute, which these guys were for all intents and purposes pretty cute, like why would you want to kill it? And I made this little story in my head that they were furry and everybody in the entire galaxy was allergic to them, and so nobody could stand being around them, and they ended up like with like all these like anger issues, and they were just like really mean. And they were called the Kerchew because that's the sound you make when you sneeze. And all that, and the design spec was like 4-meter character rolls into a ball, and that was it. And they ended up being like construction workers and all this other stuff. It was really funny, or I thought it was funny. Alright, I think that is our rabbit bot for tonight. Well, it needs like a little ground shadow. Hold on a second. So I'm gonna do a really sloppy thing first, and then we'll refine it. So on a separate layer, let's make sure we're actually on a separate layer. I'm just laying down a tone. This brush has like a little bit of a tone in it, so then I can, when I'm doing shadows, it's nice to use the mask to establish things like shadows and stuff. So I can now start, I'm actually painting into the mask right now for the ground shadow. And for ground. Shadows I always need to like zoom out, because a lot of times I'm just making them up, but then you almost have to make them up because it's so easy to complicate the composition because you didn't plan the shadow out. I'm actually kind of not feeling this. Let me change it a little bit. Even though it may not be completely accurate, it really needs to allow the shapes to do their thing. I don't know if I'm feeling putting a drop shadow behind this guy. It's Kind of complicating things. Yeah, I'll just leave it. It's alright. When in doubt, just keep mucking it. Alright, we'll just call that that. Alright, so that's our rabbit. Back. Okay, what time we got? 12:43, so that's started on. That's an hour 43 minutes to draw that guy. Whew. Okay, but we can carefully get a monster 2 drawn. You guys want to do a monster 2? Or are you guys done? I don't know, 1,000. Okay. All right, so let's do. So that was sort of Vespa-like. I wanted to do a construction vehicle, but I don't think we have the time, so we're going to use construction vehicle the next time we do this. We'll do a little critter. Let's start with a critter anyway, and then we'll figure out what we can do from there. Cool. So I want to do something kind of plump, but I love those like legs that are sticking out. I guess we kind of just use those. That's okay. That's what the exercise is about. So let's go. Can't stop looking at that little squirrel. He's awesome. So let's play with his badassery shapes. I'm not sure I'm actually going to do this. It's looking really similar to the pose that we just did. Let's try something else. So we got the rabbit, we got those cool legs. We get that little guy all tucked up into a little fur ball. Kind of used all 3 of them, didn't I? I used like the tuck of the fur ball and the big ears and those back legs of that squirrel. Do something else. Let's see if it works. Save. I watched this awesome documentary on like the snow leopards in, I think it was like Tibet or something like that last night with my wife. They were not been ever photographed before in this area and never had cubs or anything, and they had these crazy beautiful tails. It's awesome. Really long, floofy. Thanks, Justin. Thanks for coming out. Yeah, the creatures are going a little faster. I can probably hit something else tonight. I just wanted to make sure I got more than one thing out for you guys. Hands holding up. I don't know what tomorrow's going to be like, but tonight the hand feels okay. Well, I appreciate you coming out. I hope you're feeling a little bit better. Oh, the rat creatures from Bone? Yeah, those are awesome. I love that. You know what? I just picked up this. Oh, this is kind of funny. I mean, I didn't just. I keep this out. There's a screen here. It's a flip book. And let's see. Does that work? No, I can't do it. Anyway, it's a flip book with a rat creature chasing down Bone. And Tom Bancroft. Or Tony? Tom Bancroft, one of the animators from Disney, Mulan, and all that stuff. Did the animations. It's really nice. He's a good guy. But yeah, it does kind of have like a rat creature vibe to it. I love, yeah, I love the comics. Actually, I just like last year gave it to my daughter to read, and she loved it. And I don't know. I just it's nice to have like an epic tale like that to read. That doesn't have a lot. It's not serious. And actually, the grandmother in it is like just so close to my mom. It's so funny. So I always, every time I read that, everything about the great cow race and everything like that always made me laugh, because I just felt like it was like my mom yelling at me and my brothers. Cheating a little here, just using my dog feet that I always draw. So he has dog feet. Hey, Hattie. Yeah, the mechs are practice. They are. They just, a lot of times you design something in a mech and it just doesn't work, and they have a way of making you feel really discouraged really easily, in my experience. But they also, in some ways, are deceptively straightforward, in that you can draw a really sweet mech with a terrible gesture. You know, disjointed arms and things. You know, things can be all out of whack, and you can get away with it in a mech that you can't get away with in a creature, because robots are inherently awkward. And just like, you know, this guy's pose that I did, it's not terribly crazy. If I had drawn that as a creature, it wouldn't be, you know, like, people wouldn't be like, gotta see how the gesture is in this thing. But it's the mech itself carries a lot of the interests for you. So in that way, that they can be, I don't want to use the word easier, but they can do some favors for you. Yeah, I learned to draw dog feet from an actual dog. I've had a lot of Great Danes, and this is how their feet look, and I always draw them. Love drawing Great Danes. Alright, what do you guys think of that? We'll squeeze one more in. Let's see. So we can where do we want to put him? Put something. We'll just do like a couple of heads or something like that. Strange monsters. So let's see. What can I do? Try and looking at those mushrooms. So I'm going to use the little puzzle piece thing here where I'm going to find something to fit in here, and I'll find something to fit down here. So both things are going to be kind of long. Let's try and keep them different so they don't end up looking too obviously like they're getting squeezed in there. Let's see, how can we work that mushroom cap into something like a little... Alrighty. Mushroom monster. working pretty much straight off these mushrooms, but just kind of taking some liberties with the kind of like crackling pattern. Oh, just drew that on the sketch layer. That's nice. Alright, hang on a second. Try that again. It's like some weird like turtle mushroom thing. I think without doing the sort of like mashup thing where you're thinking about doing like a cutesy kind of like squirrely monster and you mashing it up with like a mushroom. You know, that's a cool way to get it in a unique shape at least, even if it might be a little bit on the weird side. There. There's a mushroom monster nobody asked for. Kind of like them though. Alright, I think that is where I'm going to leave it off tonight. I wanted to do another monster, but I'm definitely feeling it in the hands. So, that's going to be our page. 3 cute monsters that only a mom could love. Or the rest of us, I don't know. You guys have any questions before I sign off tonight? Anything you guys want to bring up? Make sure I save your file. Oh, I did. Good. Alright, well, if nobody has anything, there's a mech cute bunny robot thing. Some weird squirrel looking thing and the mushroom monster. Thanks guys, I appreciate you all coming out. Hope you guys had an awesome break. Next week we'll color something. Cool, you're welcome. My pleasure guys. Appreciate it very much. I'm going to stay on for one more minute in case anybody brings up a question. Otherwise, I will see you guys on Monday. think I'm gonna drink any more tea tonight. Otherwise I won't fall asleep. Alright. You guys are awesome for coming out. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad to be back doing this with you guys. Like I said, we're gonna color something next week. The fact that we didn't get to this construction vehicle thing makes me want to do some sort of construction-y vehicle thing. So there's a good chance I'm gonna do a construction vehicle next week. How come the sky reflection is in the bottom? Oh, that little kick light that I keep doing? I don't think I consider that. Oh, you're talking about like how I kept like it's like reflected light. It's not necessarily accurate, but it's just some things I do are just the just to kind of give the feel of it. But when you look at a raindrop, let's see if I can pick it up. One of my rendering teachers in I'm just gonna do it. It's not the reflection. I'll just do it because I'm like that. All right. So when a water droplet, you naturally want to render it like a sphere, right? You just do it. Just gonna do. Why am I not able to do it? Okay. This to be the raindrop spot right down here. Alright, so when you render a sphere, the light logic goes as follows. So you have your highlight. Let me go a little darker like that. And then you have, let's say it's a little shiny, just so it's comparative to a raindrop. And then a little reflected light, right? Nothing too complicated. But then when you have a raindrop, then all of a sudden light is getting trapped inside there. And it's actually, weirdly enough, it's actually lighting up the bottom. So the light goes through and it gets kind of trapped at the bottom, and then whatever surface or light is actually getting bounced around gets kind of trapped at the bottom, but the surface still has the highlight at the top. So the surface is actually creating that highlight just like it is on the sphere over here. And it has some of the properties of the sphere, but because the sphere is immediately kicking back, so when the light ray hits, oh my goodness, I locked the transparency. When the light ray hits this surface, because it's solid and it's not entering into it, it immediately bounces back out towards our eye. So it's an opaque sphere. But with the sphere, the light passes through that surface and starts to get slowed down. And then eventually that light will start to bounce off. So more and more rays are bouncing back out of that as that refraction is happening. So that's why I do that. That's like a natural tendency. So if you look up, it gets more complicated when you get into like reflections and things like that. So you can see what's happening here, where this raindrop, this water droplet is actually capturing light inside of it. It goes past that surface and it doesn't start to really bounce back at you until it gets slowed down onto the other side of that. That might not be the most accurate way of describing it, but that is what I'm trying to emulate here, is to kind of get that glassy look. So, am I working on a new art book? Absolutely. Yep. I'm hopefully going to have that out in the next few months. I'll let you guys know. But there are a lot of other things going on, so it's slow going. Does that make sense to you, Casper? It was a very brief answer to like, it wasn't really a sky reflection as much as it is the light getting like trapped down. Like in order to get that really like like water droplet kind of look, which I think is kind of like reminiscent of like these big black eyes that these creatures have. That's what I was kind of going for. Is like that light enters in and just kind of is getting captured, kind of like down at the bottom. I'm trying to see if there's another example over here. Props would be a good one. Yeah, I can do props. I prefer to do things like swords, and I can do guns, but here's a hilarious one. This is what I'm talking about. Sorry, just to keep going on this. See these water droplets? How the light is getting captured down at the bottom here? It has all these strange properties are going on. Like it's transparent, but the light rays are gathering down at the bottom the most. And then of course, just to make things even more complicated, because it's spherical, they're acting like they're getting focused down at the bottom there. And so that becomes brighter. It's all kinds of hilarity ensues with water droplets. So you can get away with a lot of shortcuts on rendering water droplets or glass lenses, because there's so much going on that you can just kind of do a few of them and kind of give it a nod to it, and people just generally understand like that's what you're going for. Okay. All right, so next week we'll do, well, it's either going to be next week or the following week, but the next 2 weeks we'll do props and we'll do a construction thing. Maybe I'll mix the two together. I don't know, but we'll do like a page of weapons or something like that. Those are always really good for portfolios and really, really fun to explore, because you can go crazy with those, and they don't like, you don't have to like worry about them like landing on the ground, and they can just be side views and just play with silhouettes and stuff like that. So swords are really fun. And then, but yeah, I still want to do like a construction Mac. If I want to do the swords next week, maybe I'll just do the construction Mac no matter when, or like on my own or something like that. I just got an itch. I gotta do a construction vehicle now. Okay. Anything else? Anything else that I can explain by using Google image searches and terrible light logic? You're welcome. You guys are all welcome. Okay. Alright. I'm gonna sign off. Always happy to answer questions. Usually if I don't know something, I'll make up an answer so you guys are down like the wrong path anyway, so that'll be hilarious. I'm just kidding. Alright, I'll see you guys on Monday of next week. Hopefully by then all the shenanigans of the news cycles have calmed down. We can all just have a nice 2021, or at least start heading more towards normalcy. Until then, see you soon.